seconds to tell me why I shouldn't throw you both out of my house.
You have 30 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't throw you both out of my house after the way you treated my husband at our wedding. My hand trembled as I held the door open, watching my daughter Jessica and her husband Evan stand on my porch with tear-stained faces and desperation in their eyes. The same daughter who, just 3 months ago, had loudly mocked my Raymond as a broke old man at our wedding reception. How are you doing today? Where are you watching from? I hope you're somewhere comfortable, because this story about family, judgment, and unexpected revelations might hit close to home. My name is Clara Henderson Carter. This is the story of how I went from being humiliated by my own daughter on my wedding day to watching her world collapse when she discovered who my husband really was. I can still see Jessica's face when Raymond handed her that cashier's check. Her eyes wide with shock, her makeup running with tears, the realization washing over her that the man she'd ridiculed as a nursing home escapee had just saved her from financial ruin with a single gesture. I share stories like this every day here. Moments when cruelty meets kindness, when judgment faces reality. Hit subscribe if you want more tales about family, forgiveness, and finding love later in life. But let me start from the beginning. I promise you'll want to hear every second of this. At 52, I'd given up on finding love again. After my first husband died, I poured everything into my nursing career and raising Jessica. I worked double shifts, put her through college, supported her when she married Evan. I never complained about the sacrifices. That's what mothers do. Then Raymond Carter walked into my life. A gentle, soft-spoken retired school principal with kind eyes and thoughtful words. He drove an old Toyota, wore simple clothes, and preferred quiet coffee shops to fancy restaurants. To me, he was peace after years of storms. What I didn't realize was that my daughter and son-in-law saw him through an entirely different lens. The first time Jessica met Raymond, she pulled me aside afterward. "Mom, seriously? He's like 20 years older than you. And did you see that ancient car he drives? You could do so much better." I defended him, of course. "He's kind, Jessica. He listens. He makes me happy. But what does he bring to the table?" She pressed. "You worked so hard all your life. Don't you want someone who can take care of you for once?" Little did I know that those comments were just the beginning. As our wedding approached, Jessica and Evan's remarks grew more frequent, more cutting. They had made assumptions about Raymond, all wrong, all based on appearances. They saw his age, his modest clothes, his unassuming manner, and decided he was beneath me. What none of us knew then was that Raymond had been hiding something significant, something that would have changed everything if we'd known sooner. But here's the truth about love. When you find it in your 50s after years of loneliness, you protect it fiercely. I didn't care about Raymond's financial situation. I cared about the way he looked at me like I was the most fascinating person he'd ever met. I cared about his gentle hands and his quiet wisdom. That decision to love him exactly as he presented himself led to the most painful day of my life. And then, 3 months later, to a moment of reckoning I never could have anticipated. Wait until you hear what my daughter did at our wedding reception. It was worse than you can possibly imagine. Our wedding day started beautifully. The rustic barn venue was transformed with string lights and wildflowers. Simple but elegant, just like Raymond and I wanted. At 52, I never imagined I'd be a bride again, yet there I was in a cream-colored dress, marrying a man who made me feel cherished. Raymond looked handsome in his navy suit. Not designer, but well-tailored. His silver hair was neatly combed, his eyes bright with happiness. When he saw me walking down the aisle, he wiped away tears. My heart swelled with certainty. This was right. The ceremony was perfect. We wrote our own vows, promising not grand gestures but everyday kindness. Raymond's voice broke when he promised to treasure every moment we have, because finding love at our age is life's greatest gift. Several guests dabbed at their eyes. Jessica stood beside me as my maid of honor, looking beautiful but tense. Throughout the ceremony, I caught her exchanging glances with Evan, seated in the front row. Something felt off, but I pushed the worry aside. This was my day. Our day. The trouble began during the reception. Raymond and I were making rounds, thanking guests, when I noticed Jessica and Evan huddled with my sister Beth near the bar. They were laughing, not the joyful kind, but the mocking kind. I approached just as Jessica said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Mom's seriously downgraded. He looks like he came straight from a nursing home. Evan smirked. I bet his social security check is smaller than our electric bill. My sister Beth looked uncomfortable, but didn't defend Raymond. Several guests turned away, embarrassed for us. I froze, mortified. Raymond, who had been greeting an old colleague nearby, had clearly heard every word. His smile faltered for just a moment before he composed himself. Instead of confronting them, he simply walked over, placed his hand gently on my back, and said, "Clara, I believe they're ready for our first dance." His dignity in that moment made me love him even more, and made Jessica's cruelty even more unforgivable. During our dance, I whispered, "I'm so sorry about Jessica." Raymond just held me closer. "Don't let it ruin our day. She doesn't know me yet." But it got worse. Later, Raymond presented me with his wedding gift, a delicate silver necklace with a heart charm. It wasn't flashy or expensive, but the inscription on the back read, "To my Clara, my heart found its home." I was moved to tears. Jessica, who had been watching nearby, rolled her eyes so dramatically that several bridesmaids noticed. "A $30 necklace from Amazon," she muttered to Evan, who chuckled and replied, "Mom could have married someone who actually brings something to the table." Raymond heard every word. I saw the hurt flash across his face, but again, he chose dignity over confrontation. He simply kissed my cheek and whispered, "It looks beautiful on you." That night, after most guests had left, I found Jessica and confronted her. "How could you be so cruel? This is my wedding day." She had the audacity to look defensive. "Mom, I'm just worried about you. What do you even know about this guy? He's obviously not well off. What happens when you retire? Are you going to support him?" "That's not your concern," I said firmly. "I love him. That should be enough for you." Jessica softened slightly. "I just want better for you, Mom. After everything you've done for me, you deserve someone more." I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, accomplished, materialistic daughter, and felt a profound disappointment. What you don't understand is that Raymond is more in all the ways that actually matter. I walked away, trying not to let her comments ruin my happiness. But a seed of hurt had been planted. My own daughter had humiliated me and the man I loved on what should have been the most joyful day of our new life together. Raymond never complained about Jessica's behavior. When we returned from our modest honeymoon, a week at a lakeside cabin, he suggested inviting Jessica and Evan for dinner to start fresh. That was Raymond, always taking the high road. The dinner was strained but civil. Jessica and Evan brought expensive wine, making a point to mention the price tag. Raymond served a delicious meal he'd cooked himself. When Jessica learned he'd made everything from scratch, she seemed genuinely surprised. "You cook?" she asked, as if discovering he had a rare talent. "I've lived alone for many years," Raymond replied kindly. "You either learn to cook or resign yourself to a lot of takeout." For a moment, Jessica seemed to see him differently. But then Evan asked what Raymond did before retirement, and when Raymond explained he'd been a school principal, Evan exchanged a look with Jessica that clearly said, "Not impressive." After they left, Raymond found me crying in our bedroom. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I don't know why she's like this." Raymond sat beside me, taking my hand. "Clara, your daughter loves you. She's just misguided about what matters. Give her time." But time would reveal things none of us expected. 2 months into our marriage, Raymond and I settled into a peaceful routine. We enjoyed simple pleasures. Gardening together, reading books side by side in the evening, taking walks through our neighborhood. Our home wasn't fancy, but it was warm and comfortable. Raymond had moved into my house, saying his place was too full of old memories. I'd returned to my nursing job part-time, while Raymond occasionally substituted at his old school. We weren't wealthy, but we had enough. More importantly, we had each other. Jessica kept her distance, calling less frequently than before. When she did call, she rarely asked about Raymond. I tried not to let it hurt me, focusing instead on my newfound happiness. Then came the dinner invitation I couldn't refuse. "Mom, we want you and Raymond to come see our new house," Jessica said over the phone. "We closed last week. It's in Oakwood Estates." Oakwood Estates was the most exclusive neighborhood in town. Gated community, custom homes, country club membership included. I was surprised. Jessica and Evan made good money, but not Oakwood Estates money. "That's wonderful, honey," I said, genuinely happy for them. "We'd love to come." When I told Raymond, he smiled. "That's a very expensive neighborhood. Your daughter and her husband must be doing well." Evan's startup must be taking off, I replied. Jessica's been hinting they were expecting big news. The night of the dinner, Raymond drove us in his old Toyota. As we pulled up to the security gate, I noticed him taking in the surroundings, the manicured lawns, the luxury cars and driveways. He seemed thoughtful, but not intimidated. Jessica and Evan's new home was stunning. 5,000 square feet of modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a golf course. The furniture was clearly designer, the artwork expensive. Jessica gave us a tour, emphasizing the cost of various features. The countertops are imported Italian marble, she said, running her hand across the kitchen island. And all the appliances are top of the line. Evan proudly showed Raymond his home office with its custom built-ins and the media room with a projection system that cost more than some cars. Throughout the tour, they kept glancing at Raymond, clearly expecting him to be impressed or perhaps intimidated. Raymond was polite, complimenting their home sincerely. "It's certainly beautiful," he said. "The important thing is that it makes you happy." During dinner, Evan opened an expensive bottle of wine and began talking about investments. "The market's been good to us," he said, swirling his glass. "My company's about to close a major funding round. We're talking 8 figures. Jessica beamed. "We're thinking about buying a vacation property next. Maybe in Aspen." I noticed they weren't asking anything about our lives. The entire evening was a showcase of their success, and perhaps a not-so-subtle reminder of what they perceived as Raymond's lack thereof. As dessert was served, Jessica turned to me. "Mom, we have something to ask you." "What is it, honey?" She glanced at Raymond before continuing. "We know you've been talking about retiring soon, and we were thinking, maybe you should consider selling your house. It's in an older neighborhood, and honestly, it needs a lot of updates." "Sell my house?" I was confused. "Why would I do that?" Evan jumped in. "We've been looking at some really nice retirement communities. There's one just 20 minutes from here. Very active lifestyle, great amenities." I felt my face flush. "A retirement community? I'm only 52. "They're not just for old people anymore," Jessica said quickly. "They're for people who want to simplify. You wouldn't have to worry about maintenance or yard work." Raymond sat quietly, watching the exchange. "And the thing is," Jessica continued, lowering her voice, "we're concerned about your financial future, especially now that you're—" She glanced at Raymond again. The implication was clear. "Now that you've married someone who can't contribute financially." Before I could respond, Raymond spoke up. "Clara loves her home. It's where she raised you, Jessica. I don't think she's ready to leave those memories behind." Jessica's expression hardened. "With all due respect, Raymond, this is about my mother's financial security. The market is hot right now. She could get top dollar for her house. And where would we live?" I asked, my voice tight. "Like I said, there are nice retirement communities," Jessica repeated. "Or, if you needed to, you could move in with us temporarily. We have plenty of room." The offer wasn't generous. It was condescending. They were treating me like I was destitute, and Raymond like he was a burden I'd foolishly taken on. "We're perfectly happy where we are," I said firmly. "But thank you for your concern." The rest of the evening was tense. As we prepared to leave, Jessica pulled me aside while Raymond was getting our coats. "Mom, I'm serious about this. You need to think about your future. Raymond seems nice, but he's not. He can't." She struggled to find the right words. "He can't what, Jessica?" I challenged. "He can't take care of you the way you deserve," she finally blurted out. "Look at him, Mom. He drives a car that's older than my career. His clothes are from department stores. What happens if you get sick? What happens when you're both too old to work? Have you even discussed finances with him?" 3. I pulled away from her. "My relationship with Raymond is not about money. It never has been." "That's easy to say when you have it," she retorted. "Trust me, money matters when it's gone." On the drive home, I was quiet, fighting back tears. Raymond reached over and took my hand. "They mean well," he said softly. "They're just misguided." "They were horrible," I whispered. "Suggesting we move to a retirement community? Treating you like you're some kind of financial liability." Raymond was quiet for a moment. "Clara, there's something I should probably tell you about." But I interrupted him. "No, you don't need to defend yourself. I don't care what Jessica thinks about our finances. I love our life together." He squeezed my hand. "And I love you. That's what matters." That night, I lay awake thinking about Jessica's words. Not because I doubted my decision to marry Raymond, but because I was troubled by my daughter's values. When had she become so materialistic? So judgmental? Had I raised her to be this way? Little did I know that everything was about to change, for all of us. 3 months into our marriage, Raymond and I had settled into a comfortable routine despite Jessica's ongoing disapproval. We were happy in our modest home, enjoying simple pleasures and each other's company. Raymond had begun volunteering at a local literacy program, helping adults learn to read. I continued my nursing work, cutting back to 3 days a week. One evening, as we were finishing dinner, my phone rang. It was Jessica, sounding strange, her voice tight and controlled. "Mom, is there any chance you and Raymond could come over tomorrow? There's something we need to discuss. Is everything okay?" I asked, immediately concerned. "Just, can you come? Around 7. I agreed, and when I hung up, Raymond noticed my worried expression. "Jessica wants us to come over tomorrow." She wouldn't say why, but she sounded upset. Raymond nodded thoughtfully. "We'll go, of course." The next evening, we arrived at Jessica and Evan's luxurious home to find them both looking tense. Jessica's eyes were red-rimmed, and Evan's usual confidence seemed deflated. The house that had been showcased so proudly just weeks ago now felt eerily quiet. "Come in," Jessica said, her usual polish missing. She was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, something I'd never seen her do for company, even family. In the living room, Evan poured himself a large whiskey without offering us drinks. Jessica sat on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "What's going on?" I asked, growing more concerned. Jessica and Evan exchanged glances before Evan spoke. "My company's funding fell through. Completely. The investors pulled out at the last minute." "Oh, Evan, I'm so sorry," I said sincerely. "It's worse than that," Jessica added, her voice barely above a whisper. We've been spending based on money we expected to have. The house, the cars, everything. We're underwater," Evan admitted, staring into his glass. Way underwater. As they explained their situation, my heart sank. They had purchased the house with a minimal down payment, expecting Evan's company to secure millions in funding. They had maxed out credit cards buying furniture and artwork. They had leased luxury vehicles with balloon payments coming due. "The bank is threatening foreclosure," Jessica said, finally breaking down in tears. "We've missed 2 mortgage payments already. Our credit cards are maxed out. Evan's car was repossessed yesterday." I was stunned. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "We thought we could fix it," Evan said defensively. "The funding was a sure thing. Everyone said so. What about your savings?" I asked. "Your emergency fund?" Jessica looked away, embarrassed. We used it for the down payment. And then the renovations." I tried to process what they were telling me. My daughter and son-in-law, who had been flaunting their wealth and looking down on Raymond and me, had been living completely beyond their means. Their entire lifestyle had been built on expectations, not reality. "What can we do to help?" I asked, though I knew my modest savings wouldn't make a dent in their problems. Jessica looked at me with desperate eyes. "Mom, we need a loan. A big one. We need to catch up on the mortgage and pay off some of the credit cards. Just until Evan finds another investor or a new job." My stomach dropped. "Jessica, honey, I don't have that kind of money. I have some savings, but..." "What about your retirement account?" she pressed. "You could take a loan against it." I was shocked by the suggestion. "That's for my future, our future," I said, glancing at Raymond. "And there would be penalties for early withdrawal." "Mom, we're talking about losing everything," Jessica said, her voice rising. "Our house, our credit, everything." Raymond, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "How much would you need to stabilize your situation?" Evan named a figure that made me gasp. It was more than my entire retirement savings. "That's impossible," I said. "I don't have anywhere near that amount." Jessica's desperation turned to anger. "If I had married someone wealthy instead of Evan, I could help you," she snapped at me. "But you're the one who always said money doesn't matter in relationships." Her words stung. "That's not fair, Jessica." "Isn't it?" she retorted. "You married Raymond knowing he couldn't contribute financially to your future. Now when I need help, there's nothing you can do." Raymond placed his hand gently on my arm, sensing my distress. "Perhaps we should all take a step back and consider options more carefully," he suggested calmly. "Financial problems always feel overwhelming in the moment." Jessica turned her frustration on him. "No offense, Raymond, but what would you know about our situation? You've probably never had to worry about a mortgage this size or the kind of debt we're facing. I saw a flicker of something in Raymond's eyes. Not hurt, but something else I couldn't quite identify. Jessica, I admonished. That's enough. It's all right, Clara, Raymond said quietly. Then he turned to Jessica and Evan. You're right that I haven't been in your exact situation, but I do understand financial pressure. Why don't you show me exactly what you're dealing with? Perhaps together we can find a solution. Evan, looking defeated, brought out a folder filled with bills, bank statements, and collection notices. The amount of debt was staggering. The next morning, Raymond asked me to join him in his small home office, a converted bedroom he rarely used. I'd always respected his privacy, assuming he kept mementos from his previous life there. When I entered, I noticed a sleek laptop open on the desk, much newer than the old desktop computer he usually used. Clara, please sit down, he said gently. There's something I need to show you. His serious tone made my stomach tighten. What is it? Is everything okay? Everything's fine, he assured me. But after last night with Jessica and Evan, I realized I've kept something from you that I shouldn't have. He turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a financial portfolio summary. As I scanned the page, my eyes widened at the numbers, 7 figures spread across multiple accounts, properties, and investments. Raymond, what is this? I whispered, though I was beginning to understand. This is my financial portfolio, he said quietly. I'm worth a little over $8 million. The room seemed to tilt. $8 million? I couldn't process what he was saying. Raymond took my hands in his. I should have told you before we married. I've spent 40 years investing carefully. Real estate, stocks, education consulting. I retired comfortably, but I never cared about showing it. But your car, our house, your clothes. I stammered. I've always lived simply, he explained. After my wife died, I realized how little material things matter. I found more joy in giving anonymously than in accumulating status symbols. My mind raced back through our courtship, our wedding, Jessica's cruel comments, the dinner at her house. Everything looked different now. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, not angry but confused. At first, I wanted to be sure you loved me for myself, not my money, he admitted. Then, when I saw how Jessica and Evan treated me, how they valued people based on wealth and status, I decided to wait. I wanted them to know me as a person first. I sat in stunned silence, processing this revelation. Raymond wasn't just financially secure, he was wealthy. The broke old man my daughter had mocked could have bought her new house several times over with cash. What about Jessica and Evan? I finally asked. Are you going to help them? Raymond's expression was thoughtful. I can help them, yes. But simply writing a check won't solve their real problem. Which is, they value the appearance of wealth over actual financial security. They judge worth by price tags. He squeezed my hands. I want to help them, Clara. But I want to help them learn, not just bail them out. I nodded slowly, understanding his wisdom. What are you thinking? I'd like to invite them here tomorrow. I'll help them, substantially, but with conditions that will teach them something valuable. That night, I barely slept, my mind replaying Jessica's comments at our wedding, her condescending suggestion about retirement communities, her assumption that Raymond was a financial burden, all while he sat quietly, dignified, never feeling the need to prove his worth. The next evening, Jessica and Evan arrived looking desperate. Jessica's eyes were swollen from crying, and Evan's usual confidence had completely evaporated. They sat stiffly on our living room sofa, the same sofa Jessica had once called outdated. Thank you for coming, Raymond began kindly. Clara and I have been discussing your situation. Jessica looked at me hopefully. Mom, I know you don't have much, but anything would help right now. Actually, I said, my heart pounding, there's something you should know about Raymond. Raymond opened his laptop and turned it toward them. This is my financial portfolio, he said simply. Jessica and Evan leaned forward, their expressions changing from confusion to shock as they processed what they were seeing. This is yours? Evan asked, his voice barely audible. Yes, Raymond confirmed. I've been fortunate with my investments over the years. Jessica's face had drained of color. But you drive an old Toyota. You wear clothes from department stores. You never said anything about. I never saw the need, Raymond replied. I've found that people who talk about money usually have something to prove. The weight of her past comments crashed down on Jessica visibly. She looked at me, then back at Raymond, her her eyes filling with tears of shame. "All those things I said at the wedding," she whispered. "The comments about your car, your clothes, the necklace you gave Mom." Raymond nodded. "I heard them. And you never said anything?" Evan asked incredulously. "What would be the point?" Raymond asked. "Would telling you I was wealthy have made your comments less hurtful? Or would it just have changed how you treated me?" Jessica began to cry in earnest now. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "I was horrible to you. Absolutely horrible. I watched my daughter, my accomplished, beautiful daughter, finally seeing the ugliness of her own behavior. Part of me ached for her humiliation, but another part knew this reckoning was necessary." Raymond walked to his office and returned with a folder. "I want to help you," he said, sitting down again. "But not just financially." He opened the folder and removed several documents and a cashier's check. Jessica gasped when she saw the amount. Enough to cover their mortgage arrears and credit card debt with money to spare. "Why?" she asked through tears. "Why would you help us after how we treated you?" Raymond's expression was compassionate but serious. "Because you're Clara's daughter. Because everyone deserves a second chance. And because I believe you can learn from this." Evan, who had been staring at the check in disbelief, finally spoke. "What's the catch?" "Not a catch," Raymond clarified. "Conditions. This money comes with financial counseling, which I'll arrange and pay for. You'll need to sell the house and find something within your actual means. You'll surrender your credit cards. And you'll create a realistic budget that includes saving for emergencies." Jessica nodded rapidly, willing to agree to anything. "But the most important condition," Raymond continued, "is that you remember how easy it was to misjudge me and how wrong you were. I hope that teaches you something about judging others based on appearances." Jessica broke down completely then, sobbing apologies. Evan sat with his head in his hands, the magnitude of their misjudgment and Raymond's generosity overwhelming him. I moved to comfort my daughter, but Raymond gently held my arm. "She needs to feel this," he whispered. "It's part of growing." As I watched my husband, this quiet, unassuming man with hidden depths, I realized I was seeing his true wealth for the first time. Not the millions in his accounts, but the richness of his character, his wisdom, his capacity for forgiveness. Jessica looked up at Raymond through her tears. "I don't deserve your help," she admitted. "Perhaps not," he agreed gently. "But you need it. And sometimes the greatest gift is receiving something we don't deserve." The days following Raymond's revelation were difficult for all of us. While the immediate financial crisis had been averted for Jessica and Evan, the emotional aftermath was just beginning. Jessica fell into a deep depression. The shame of her behavior, combined with the humiliation of needing Raymond's help, crushed her usually confident spirit. She stopped calling, stopped visiting, and according to friends, barely left her house. Evan threw himself into finding a new job, his pride severely wounded. They listed their dream house for sale, moving into a small apartment temporarily. The beautiful furniture was sold at a fraction of its cost. The luxury cars were replaced with practical, affordable models. I tried reaching out to Jessica multiple times, but her responses were brief and distant. "I need some time," she texted. "I can't face him yet." Raymond encouraged me to give her space. "Shame is a powerful emotion," he said wisely. "She needs to process it in her own way." But as weeks passed with minimal contact, my worry grew. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my relationship with my only child. Had Raymond's revelation created a permanent rift between us? One rainy afternoon, I drove to Jessica's apartment unannounced. When she opened the door, I barely recognized her. My always polished daughter looked exhausted, her hair pulled back carelessly, wearing old sweatpants and a faded t-shirt. The apartment behind her was sparsely furnished with mismatched pieces, a stark contrast to her former showcase home. "Mom," she said, surprised. "I wasn't expecting you." "I needed to see you," I replied. "May I come in?" She stepped aside reluctantly. The apartment was clean but depressing, beige walls, beige carpet, minimal decoration. A far cry from the luxury she'd surrounded herself with just weeks ago. "How are you?" I asked, though the answer was written all over her face. Jessica shrugged. "Surviving. Evan found a job. It pays about a third of what he was making, but it's something. And you?" "I'm looking," she said flatly. Turns out my marketing experience was mostly connections through Evan's network. Those doors aren't exactly open anymore. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment before I addressed the elephant in the room. Jessica, we need to talk about Raymond. She visibly flinched at his name. I know I need to thank him properly. I can't face him yet. Every time I think about how I treated him, I want to crawl into a hole. He doesn't expect gratitude, I said gently. He just wants a relationship with you. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. How can he even want that? I called him a nursing home escapee at your wedding, Mom. I mocked the necklace he gave you. I treated him like he was beneath us. Her voice broke. I was cruel to a kind man because I thought he was poor. What does that say about me? The raw self-loathing in her voice broke my heart. It says you made mistakes. It says you valued the wrong things. But it doesn't define you forever, Jessica. Doesn't it? She challenged bitterly. I keep replaying everything in my mind. All those comments. The way I looked at him. The way I spoke about him to Evan, to my friends. She wiped angrily at her tears. I was a horrible person. And now I'm being punished for it. This isn't punishment, I insisted. It's an opportunity to learn and grow. Easy for you to say, she snapped. You married a millionaire who loves you. I'm living in this depressing apartment with a husband who blames me for pushing him to take risks that ruined us. Her words stung. Is that what Evan says? That you pushed him? Jessica's expression crumpled. He doesn't have to say it. I see it in his eyes. We barely talk anymore. When we do, we fight about money, about the past, about whose fault this is. For the first time, I realized that Jessica and Evan's marriage might be another casualty of this situation. The foundation of their relationship, ambition, status, the appearance of success, had been completely undermined. Have you considered counseling? I asked carefully. With what money? She retorted. We're on a strict budget, remember? Raymond's conditions. I flinched at her tone. Jessica, Raymond is trying to help you build a stable future. By controlling our lives? By making us sell everything? By forcing us into financial counseling like we're children. Those were the conditions you agreed to, I reminded her. Because we were desperate, she cried. What choice did we have? I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. The choice you have now is how you respond to this situation. You can see it as punishment, or you can see it as a chance to rebuild on a stronger foundation. Jessica laughed bitterly. A stronger foundation. Right. Like what? Like marrying a secret millionaire. Her words hit me like a slap. Is that what you think? That I married Raymond for his money? No, she admitted after a moment. You didn't even know. Which makes me feel even worse. You loved him for who he is. I couldn't see past what he appeared to be. We sat in silence again, the rain pattering against the windows. I don't know who I am anymore, Mom, Jessica finally whispered. Everything I thought was important, the house, the cars, the status, it's all gone. And the worst part is, I deserve to lose it. I moved to sit beside her on the sofa, putting my arm around her shoulders. You didn't deserve to lose everything, Jessica. You deserved to learn that those things weren't what mattered most. There's a difference. She leaned against me, crying softly. I don't know how to face him. I don't know how to face myself. As I held my broken daughter, I realized that Raymond's money had solved one problem, but created another. The financial crisis was over, but the crisis of identity, of values, of self-worth, that was just beginning. When I returned home that evening, Raymond was waiting with a cup of tea and concerned eyes. How is she? He asked as I sank wearily onto the sofa beside him. Lost, I answered honestly. Ashamed, angry, confused. Her marriage is struggling. She doesn't know who she is without all the trappings of success. Raymond nodded thoughtfully. That's not surprising. When we build our identity on external things, losing them feels like losing ourselves. She's afraid to face you, I added. The shame is overwhelming her. Shame can be productive if it leads to change, Raymond observed. But at some point it becomes destructive. I looked at my husband, this wise, compassionate man who had shown such restraint in the face of cruelty. Did you ever consider just telling them who you really were? When they were mocking you at the wedding, or showing off their house? Raymond smiled sadly. Many times. But what would that have accomplished? They would have changed their behavior toward me, but not their values. They needed to see the consequences of judging people by their financial status. And now? I asked. What do they need now? Raymond was quiet for a moment. Now they need to rebuild. Not just financially, but morally. They need to discover who they are when all the external markers of success are stripped away. I thought about Jessica's tear-stained face, her lost expression, her struggling marriage. What if they can't? What if this breaks them completely? Raymond took my hand. Then we'll be there to help them pick up the pieces. But Clara, your daughter is stronger than she knows. This may be the making of her, not the breaking. I wanted to believe him. But that night, as I lay awake thinking about Jessica's despair, I wondered if we had gone too far. If the lesson was worth the pain it was causing. The next morning, my phone rang early. It was Evan, his voice tight with panic. Clara, it's Jessica. She's not good. Can you come over? Please. My heart raced. What happened? She found out her old boss is having a party tonight, some work celebration. She wasn't invited. She saw the pictures on social media. Everyone from her old life moving on without her. She broke down completely. I've never seen her like this. I'll be right there, I promised, already reaching for my clothes. Raymond appeared in the doorway, concern etched on his face. What's wrong? It's Jessica, I explained quickly. She's having some kind of breakdown. I need to go to her. I'll come with you, he said immediately. I hesitated. Raymond, she's not ready to face you yet. This isn't about me, he said firmly. This is about Jessica needing help. Let me drive you at least. 20 minutes later, we arrived at Jessica's apartment building. Raymond stayed in the car, squeezing my hand reassuringly. Call if you need me, he said. Evan met me at the door, looking haggard. She's in the bedroom, he whispered. She won't stop crying. She keeps saying she's nothing now, that everyone knows she's a failure. I found Jessica curled on her bed, sobbing into a pillow. When I touched her shoulder, she looked up with red, swollen eyes. They're all laughing at me, she choked out. Everyone knows we lost everything. They know we're living in this place. They know Evan's working at a job he's overqualified for. They know I can't even get interviews. Jessica, no one is laughing at you. I tried to reassure her. You don't understand, she cried. Our whole life was about being successful, being admired. Now we're nothing. Less than nothing. We're cautionary tales. As I held my daughter, trying to comfort her, I realized the depth of the problem. Jessica and Evan hadn't just lost their money and status. They'd lost their entire identity, their sense of self-worth, their place in the world as they understood it. And in that moment, I wondered if Raymond's lesson, however well-intentioned, had gone too far. As Jessica sobbed in my arms, I faced an impossible decision. My daughter was broken, not just financially, but spiritually. The lesson Raymond had tried to teach had spiraled into something darker than either of us intended. Yet simply erasing the consequences wouldn't help her grow. Jessica, I said gently, stroking her hair, I need you to listen to me. This feeling, this rock bottom, it's terrible. But it's not the end. You don't understand, she whispered. We lost everything that mattered. Did you? I challenged softly. Or did you lose everything you thought mattered? She pulled away slightly, her swollen eyes meeting mine. When your father died, I continued, I lost everything I thought mattered. My partner, my future, my financial security. I worked double shifts as a nurse to keep our home, to put you through college. I wore the same clothes for years. I drove an old car. That was different, Jessica protested weakly. Was it? I rebuilt my life from nothing. Not with status symbols, but with purpose. With work that mattered. With relationships that sustained me. Jessica wiped her tears. But how? How do you start over when everyone knows you failed? I took a deep breath. There's someone who might help you answer that question. Someone who knows about starting over, about finding worth beyond wealth. Raymond, she whispered, fresh shame coloring her face. He's outside in the car, I admitted. He came with me because he was worried about you. Jessica's eyes widened in panic. I can't face him, Mom. Not like this. Not after everything. Jessica, listen to me carefully, I said, holding her gaze. You have a choice right now. You can stay in this apartment, hiding from Raymond, from your former colleagues, from the world, letting shame define you. Or you can face the man you misjudged, apologize sincerely, and ask for his guidance. Why would he even want to help me? She asked brokenly. Because that's who he is, I said simply. The man you mocked for his old car and simple clothes has spent his life helping others. Before he was a school principal, he taught in underserved communities. After retirement, he volunteered teaching adults to read. His wealth came from wise investments, yes, but also from a lifetime of choosing purpose over appearance. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. Do you think he could help Evan find a better job? I don't know, I answered honestly. but I know he won't use his connections to help you return to a lifestyle you can't sustain. That's not the kind of help you need right now. She nodded slowly, understanding. What kind of help do I need? The kind that helps you redefine success. The kind that helps you find worth in who you are, not what you own. Jessica took a shuddering breath. Okay, she whispered. Ask him to come in. I texted Raymond, and minutes later, there was a gentle knock at the bedroom door. Jessica tensed visibly as Raymond entered, his kind eyes taking in her disheveled appearance and tear-stained face without judgment. Hello, Jessica, he said softly. Raymond, she began, but broke down again, unable to continue. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed. You don't need to say anything right now. But I do, she insisted through tears. I need to tell you how sorry I am. For everything. For the things I said at the wedding. For how I treated you. For judging you based on nothing that matters. Raymond nodded, accepting her apology. Thank you for saying that. I believe you mean it. I do, she whispered. I don't know how to fix any of this. My marriage is falling apart. My career is over. Everyone I thought was my friend has disappeared. May I tell you a story? Raymond asked gently. Jessica nodded, wiping her tears. When I was 35, I lost everything, he began. My first investment, a restaurant I opened with a friend, failed completely. I lost my savings. My wife left me, taking our son. I was humiliated, broke, and alone. Jessica's eyes widened. This wasn't the story she expected. I moved into a tiny apartment, Raymond continued. I took a teaching job that paid barely enough to cover rent and child support. For 3 years, I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. What changed? Jessica asked quietly. I did, Raymond said simply. I stopped defining success by my bank account or relationship status. I found purpose in teaching children who needed me. I discovered I had a talent for connecting with troubled students. The principal noticed and mentored me. Eventually, I became a principal myself. And the money? Jessica couldn't help asking. Raymond smiled. That came much later. I lived frugally and invested carefully. When the tech boom happened, some early investments paid off. I bought rental properties when real estate was affordable. But by then, I'd already learned that wealth doesn't equal worth. Jessica absorbed his words. I don't know if I can do that. Start over. Find purpose. You can, Raymond assured her. But first, you need to decide what you truly value. Is it the approval of people who only cared about your status? Or is it building a life with genuine meaning? Jessica looked down at her hands. I don't even know who I am without all the trappings. That's the first thing to discover, Raymond said. And it might be the most valuable journey of your life. Evan appeared in the doorway, having overheard the conversation. His face showed a mixture of shame and hope. I'd like to find out too, he said quietly. Who I am beyond the startup founder. Beyond the fancy job title. Raymond looked between them. It won't be easy. You'll need to confront hard truths about yourselves. About what drove you to value status over substance. Will you help us? Jessica asked, vulnerability plain in her voice. Raymond glanced at me, and I nodded encouragingly. Yes, he said. But not with money this time. With something more valuable. What's that? Evan asked. Perspective, Raymond replied. And an opportunity. He explained his proposal. Jessica and Evan would volunteer at the Adult Literacy Center where he helped. They would work alongside people who were striving for education despite enormous obstacles. People who defined success not by possessions, but by progress. Many of these adults work multiple jobs, raise families, and still find time to learn to read, Raymond explained. Their determination might help you redefine what strength looks like. Additionally, Raymond offered to connect Evan with a former colleague who ran a small but ethical tech company. Not a glamorous startup, but a business with purpose and stability. The salary would be modest compared to what you're used to, Raymond cautioned. But it would be honest work with people who value contribution over credentials. For Jessica, he suggested using her marketing skills to help nonprofits, building a portfolio of meaningful work while searching for her true calling. This isn't a handout, Raymond emphasized. It's a hand up. The rest will be up to you. Jessica and Evan exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. For the first time in weeks, I saw something like hope in my daughter's eyes. We'll do it, Jessica said firmly. All of it. As we prepared to leave, Jessica pulled me aside. Mom, I need to ask you something important. What is it, honey? Was it worth it? She asked quietly. Marrying Dad, even though you struggled financially afterward? Choosing love over security. I smiled, understanding the real question behind her words. Your father gave me you. He gave me love and partnership, even if it was briefer than we planned. Yes, the financial struggles were hard, but they revealed my strength, not my weakness. Jessica nodded thoughtfully. I think I'm starting to understand what you and Raymond have been trying to teach me. As Raymond and I drove home, I reached for his hand. Thank you, I said simply. For what? For seeing the potential in my daughter when all she could see was her failure. For offering guidance instead of judgment. Raymond squeezed my hand. Everyone deserves a second chance, Clara, including Jessica and Evan. That night, I reflected on the journey we'd all taken. From my wedding day, when Jessica had mocked Raymond as a broke old man, to today, when she had looked to him for wisdom about rebuilding her life. The lesson had been painful, yes. But watching my daughter take her first steps toward authentic values made me believe it might have been necessary. The next morning, Jessica texted me. Going to the literacy center with Raymond today. Scared but ready. It was a small step. But sometimes, the smallest steps lead to the most profound transformations. 6 months passed. Jessica and Evan embraced their new path with a determination that surprised even me. 3 evenings a week, they volunteered at the literacy center. Jessica discovered a talent for connecting with women learning English as a second language, while Evan used his tech skills to improve the center's outdated computer systems. Evan took the job with Raymond's colleague, a significant step down in title and salary from his startup days, but stable and meaningful. Jessica found part-time work with a local nonprofit, using her marketing expertise to help them reach more donors. They sold most of their remaining luxury items and moved to a modest townhouse they could actually afford. Their marriage, tested by hardship, slowly strengthened as they built a life based on substance rather than appearance. Raymond mentored them through it all, offering wisdom without judgment. The man my daughter had once mocked became her most valued advisor. Then came the invitation that would bring everything full circle. The Literacy Center is having its annual fundraising gala, Raymond mentioned one evening. They've asked me to speak about our volunteer program. I'd like all of us to attend. You, me, Jessica, and Evan. The gala would be held at the Grand Hotel downtown, the same venue where many of Jessica and Evan's former social circle held their charity events. People who had dropped them when their financial situation collapsed would likely be there. Are you sure that's a good idea? I asked, concerned. Jessica has made so much progress. Facing those people might set her back. Raymond smiled thoughtfully. I believe she's ready. But it's not just about Jessica. There's something important I want to announce that evening. The night of the gala arrived. Raymond wore a new suit. Still not designer, but well-tailored and elegant. I chose a simple blue dress that made me feel confident. As we drove to the hotel, I noticed Raymond seemed unusually nervous. Is everything okay? I asked. Perfect, he assured me. Just thinking about my speech. Jessica and Evan met us in the lobby. I barely recognized my daughter. Gone were the flashy designer clothes and excessive jewelry she once favored. Instead, she wore a classic black dress with minimal accessories. But the most striking change was in her face. A quiet confidence had replaced her former brittle polish. You look beautiful, I told her, embracing her. Thanks, Mom, she replied. I'm nervous about seeing everyone, but Raymond says I'm ready. As we entered the ballroom, I immediately spotted several people from Jessica and Evan's former social circle. The same people who had attended our wedding and heard Jessica's cruel comments about Raymond. Some averted their eyes when they saw us. Others whispered behind their hands. Jessica tensed beside me. They're all talking about us, she murmured. Let them talk, Raymond said calmly. Their opinions don't define your worth. We found our table near the front, a place of honor due to Raymond's role as a speaker. Throughout dinner, I watched Jessica navigate uncomfortable encounters with remarkable grace. When a former friend approached with barely concealed curiosity about their downsized lifestyle, Jessica simply smiled and said, We've discovered what truly matters to us. It's been transformative. After dinner, the center's director took the stage to introduce Raymond. Tonight's speaker has been the heart of our volunteer program for years. His dedication to adult literacy has changed countless lives. Please welcome Raymond Carter. As Raymond walked to the podium, I felt a surge of pride. This was the man Jessica had once dismissed as a nursing home escapee, now commanding the respect of everyone in the room. "Thank you," Raymond began. "Literacy changes lives. I've witnessed this truth for decades, first as a teacher, then as a principal, and now as a volunteer. When adults learn to read, they don't just gain a skill. They gain dignity, independence, and possibility." He spoke eloquently about the center's work, then surprised me by calling Jessica and Evan to join him on stage. 6 months ago, these two remarkable individuals joined our volunteer team, Raymond continued. They've worked tirelessly with our students, bringing professional skills and genuine compassion to our community. Jessica and Evan stood beside him, looking both proud and humbled. "What many of you don't know," Raymond said, his voice carrying clearly through the ballroom, "is that Jessica is my stepdaughter. When I married her mother last year, Jessica and I didn't immediately connect. In fact, there were some challenging moments." A murmur rippled through the audience. Several guests shifted uncomfortably, remembering the wedding. "But life has a way of teaching us what matters," Raymond continued. "Through circumstances I won't detail out of respect for their privacy, Jessica and Evan embarked on a journey of rediscovery. They've demonstrated extraordinary courage in redefining success on their own terms." Jessica blinked back tears beside him, standing tall despite the whispers from the audience. "Tonight, I'm proud to announce the establishment of the New Beginnings Scholarship Fund," Raymond revealed. "This $1 million endowment will provide educational opportunities for adults seeking to rebuild their lives after financial hardship." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. The same people who had witnessed Jessica mocking Raymond's perceived poverty were now hearing him announce a $1 million donation. "And I'm even prouder to announce that this fund will be directed by Jessica and Evan Carter Walsh, whose personal experience with financial rebuilding gives them unique insight into the challenges our recipients will face." Jessica's hand flew to her mouth in shock. Evan stood frozen beside her, equally stunned. "Jessica and Evan have earned this responsibility not through family connection, but through demonstrated commitment to our mission," Raymond explained. "They've shown that true wealth lies in resilience, compassion, and the courage to begin again." The audience erupted in applause. I watched as several of Jessica's former friends, the same ones who had abandoned her in her darkest moment, approached the stage afterward, suddenly eager to reconnect. Jessica greeted them politely, but without the desperate need for approval that once defined her. When one woman gushed about how amazing the scholarship fund was, Jessica simply said, "The amazing part is what I've learned from the people at the center. They've redefined success for me." Later, in a quiet moment, Jessica embraced Raymond with tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she asked simply. "After how I treated you, why would you trust me with something so important?" Raymond's eyes were gentle. "Because you've earned it. Not through perfection, but through transformation. You're not the same person who mocked me at that wedding, Jessica. You've become someone of substance." Evan shook Raymond's hand, his own eyes glistening. "I don't know how to thank you for believing in us when we didn't deserve it." "You've thanked me already," Raymond replied. "By becoming people of character. By valuing what truly matters." As we drove home that night, I reflected on the extraordinary journey we'd taken. From the humiliation of my wedding day to the triumph of the gala, Raymond had orchestrated not a revenge, but a redemption. "You planned this all along, didn't you?" I asked him. "From the moment you decided not to reveal your wealth at our wedding." Raymond smiled. "Not exactly. I couldn't have predicted Jessica and Evan's financial collapse. But when it happened, I saw an opportunity, not to punish them, but to help them discover what I learned long ago. Which is, that we are not defined by what we own, but by who we become through adversity." He took my hand. "Your daughter has become someone remarkable, Clara. Someone of depth and compassion. That's worth more than any amount in my portfolio." As we arrived home, my phone chimed with a text from Jessica. "I understand now. Everything. Thank you both for not giving up on us." I showed the message to Raymond, who nodded with satisfaction. "The lesson is complete," he said softly. And in that moment, I realized that Raymond's greatest wealth had never been in his bank accounts. It had been in his wisdom, his patience, and his profound understanding of what truly makes a life rich. 1 year after the gala, we gathered in the backyard of Jessica and Evan's new home. A modest but charming 3-bedroom house with a vegetable garden and a treehouse Evan had built for neighborhood children. It was Raymond's 70th birthday, and Jessica had insisted on hosting. The transformation in my daughter's life was remarkable. The New Beginnings Scholarship Fund had flourished under her direction, helping dozens of adults rebuild after financial hardship. Evan had been promoted at the tech company, finding fulfillment in work that balanced ambition with ethics. Their home reflected their new values. Comfortable but not showy, filled with books and handmade items rather than status symbols. Photos of Literacy Center graduates lined one wall, each representing a life changed through education. As Raymond opened gifts at the picnic table, I observed Jessica watching him with genuine affection. The contempt that had once colored her interactions with him had been replaced by deep respect. Speech, Evan called as Raymond unwrapped the last present, a handmade photo album documenting the scholarship recipients' journeys. Raymond stood, looking around at our small gathering. No fancy guests, just family and close friends from the Literacy Center. At 70, I've learned that birthdays are less about counting years and more about measuring growth, he began. This past year has given me the greatest gift possible, watching Jessica and Evan discover their authentic selves. Jessica smiled through tears. We had a pretty terrible teacher at first, she admitted. Pride, materialism, status obsession, not recommended instructors. But excellent cautionary tales, Evan added, putting his arm around her shoulders. Raymond nodded. Sometimes we need to lose our way completely before we can find our true path. Jessica and Evan have not only found theirs but are now guiding others. He raised his glass. To second chances, hard-earned wisdom, and the courage to begin again. After cake, Jessica pulled me aside. Mom, there's something I need to tell you, she said, her expression a mixture of nervousness and joy. What is it, honey? She took a deep breath. We're adopting a 7-year-old girl from the Literacy Center. Her mother is one of my students, a single mom struggling with 3 jobs and housing insecurity. She asked if we would consider giving her daughter a stable home while she gets back on her feet. I gasped. Jessica, that's a huge commitment. I know, she said seriously. A year ago, I wouldn't have been capable of it. I was too selfish, too focused on appearances. But now, she looked around at her modest home. Now I understand what Raymond tried to teach us. Real wealth is having enough to share. Not just money, but time, love, security. Have you told Raymond? I asked. Jessica smiled. Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. Later, when Jessica announced the adoption plan to everyone, Raymond's eyes filled with tears. He embraced her tightly, whispering something in her ear that made her nod with emotion. That evening, as Raymond and I drove home, I asked what he had said to Jessica. I told her she'd discovered the secret I learned long ago, he replied. That the most valuable thing we can do with our resources, whether financial or spiritual, is to use them to lift others. He was quiet for a moment before adding, I also told her I was setting up a college fund for her daughter. Not enough to spoil her, but enough to ensure education will never be out of reach. I squeezed his hand. You've changed their lives completely. No, Raymond corrected gently. They changed their own lives. I just provided an opportunity for them to see what they were capable of becoming. 6 months later, we welcomed 7-year-old Lucia into our family. The little girl who had never had a stable home blossomed under Jessica and Evan's care. The couple who had once defined success by their address and car models now measured it by Lucia's growing confidence and the progress of their literacy students. Raymond became Grandpa Ray to Lucia, spending hours reading with her, teaching her chess, and quietly ensuring her future education was secure. The man Jessica had once dismissed as a broke old man became the cornerstone of wisdom in our expanding family. As for me, I retired from nursing, devoting my time to supporting Raymond's literacy work and enjoying my unexpected role as grandmother. The journey from that painful wedding day to our present happiness had been difficult but necessary. One evening, as Raymond and I sat on our porch watching the sunset, I reflected on the extraordinary transformation we'd witnessed. Do you ever regret not revealing your financial situation sooner? I asked him. It might have spared us all some pain. Raymond considered the question carefully. No, he finally answered. Jessica and Evan needed to learn that lesson the hard way. If I'd simply told them I was wealthy, they might have treated me differently, but their values wouldn't have changed. And now they understand what I've always believed, that character outweighs currency, that generosity matters more than possessions, that true wealth lies in what we give, not what we keep. I leaned my head against his shoulder, grateful for this wise, unassuming man who had transformed not just my life, but my daughter's as well. You know, I said thoughtfully, when Jessica mocked you at our wedding, calling you a broke old man, I was devastated. I never imagined that moment would lead to such profound change. Raymond smiled. Sometimes the most painful moments contain the seeds of our greatest growth. Today, as I share this story with you, I'm sitting in the literacy center where it all began. Around me, adults of all ages are learning to read, write, and rebuild their lives. Jessica is in the next room, helping a young mother fill out college applications. Evan is upgrading the center's computer lab. Raymond is teaching chess to Lucia and 2 other children whose parents are in classes. I'm really glad you stayed with me through this whole story. Thank you for listening to our journey from humiliation to healing, from judgment to growth. If this story moved you, please like this video. Subscribe to hear more stories about family transformations and second chances. I share new stories every single day about the unexpected ways love and wisdom can change lives. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'm genuinely curious about who connects with our family's journey. As I look around at what we've built together, not wealth in the traditional sense, but rich, meaningful lives, I'm reminded of Raymond's favorite saying, "The true measure of your wealth is how much you'd be worth if you lost all your money." By that standard, we are millionaires many times over.